Being a Niners fan right now feels like one of those moments where you can tell something big is shifting with this team, but you're still trying to figure out exactly what the front office is building. Because in the span of just a few days, two different situations popped up around the wide receiver room, and when you put them together, it really feels like the beginning of a completely new direction for this offense. One move just became official, involving a massive name that's been dominating the league for over a decade. And the other situation involves a player that a lot of us 49ers fans have grown to love over the last few seasons, a guy who's made some huge plays for this team. And depending on how this all plays out, the wide receiver room in San Francisco could look very different very soon. There's a lot to unpack here: contracts, roster decisions, and what this might mean for the future of the offense. But before we break it all down, if you're a real Niners fan, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This channel is brand new, and I'm really trying to build a community of true faithful here, so honestly, only subscribe if you truly believe the Niners are going to the Super Bowl next season. So now we can finally talk about the first big move. And honestly, when the news dropped, my first reaction as a Niners fan was something like, wait, the 49ers actually pulled this off? Because San Francisco just added one of the biggest names that hit the market at wide receiver. After 12 seasons with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans is officially a San Francisco 49er. And this is not just a small deal either. The contract is reportedly worth $60.4 million over 3 years. That puts Evans around the 21st highest-paid wide receiver in total contract value in the league, and his yearly average comes out to about $20.1 million per season, which places him roughly 23rd among wide receivers in annual salary. But here's where things start to get really interesting, because according to NFL insider Adam Schefter, who talked about the deal on the Pat McAfee show, this contract might not actually be what it looks like on paper. Schefter said the deal is technically listed as 3 years, but in reality it's really a shorter-term deal than that. And it's being structured as a 3-year contract mainly for salary cap purposes. And if you've followed the NFL long enough, you know exactly what that usually means. It likely means the 49ers added what people call ghost years to the contract. Basically, extra years that exist mostly on paper so the team can spread the cap hits across multiple seasons while still giving Evans enough guaranteed money up front to convince him to sign. So in reality, this might function more like a short-term commitment instead of a full 3-year plan. And honestly, when you start looking at the other details, that makes a lot of sense. Because Mike Evans will turn 33 years old in August. And even though he's a 6-time Pro Bowler and one of the most consistent receivers of the last decade, there's no ignoring the injury concerns. Last season alone, Evans played only 8 games. He missed 5 games after suffering a concussion and a broken collarbone on October 20th. And before that, he had already missed 3 games earlier in September with a hamstring injury. And unfortunately, hamstring injuries have kind of followed him around. According to the injury tracking site Draft Sharks, Evans actually has a 93% probability of missing at least 2 quarters during the 2026 season. That's a pretty wild number. Even more concerning, he has dealt with some form of hamstring injury every single year since 2019. Now, sometimes that didn't force him to miss games, but when you're talking about a player getting older, those kinds of injuries can start stacking up. So clearly, the 49ers front office looked at this situation and asked themselves a serious question. Is it worth taking a chance on an aging receiver with an injury history if the upside is still there? And apparently they believe the answer was yes. Another interesting layer here involves Raheem Morris, who is now the 49ers defensive coordinator. Morris had the chance to see Mike Evans up close multiple times when Evans faced the Atlanta Falcons. In fact, Evans had 188 receiving yards in 2 games against Atlanta last season, including 132 yards in Week 15 alone. So there were definitely moments where Evans still looked like the same dominant receiver we've been watching for years. But the production was inconsistent down the stretch. During the final 3 games of the season, when the Buccaneers were fighting for their playoff lives, Evans never had more than 35 receiving yards in a game. Still, though, he left his mark in key moments. For example, in Week 16 against the Carolina Panthers, he caught a goal line fade touchdown and also made an important first down catch early in the game. So even when the yardage totals weren't huge, he was still impacting games in situational football. And when you start looking at how the 49ers might actually use him, this is where the real strategy starts to appear. Because according to multiple evaluations around the league, Mike Evans is not expected to replace Brandon Ayuk in the offense. Instead, he's being viewed as more of a replacement for Jauan Jennings. And that actually makes a lot of sense when you think about the way Kyle Shanahan uses certain receivers. Jennings has been that physical, tough, over-the-middle target, the guy who blocks, fights for yards, and shows up in clutch situations. But if Jennings is about to command something like $20 million per season on the open market, the 49ers might be thinking, why not pay that same type of money to a more established veteran like Mike Evans, especially while Ricky Pearsall is still playing on a rookie contract? It's basically a roster management decision. Instead of committing long-term money to Jennings as your WR2, you bring in a veteran with a proven resume who can fill many of those same roles. And there's another massive factor here that a lot of people around the league keep talking about. Most reports suggest that the 49ers are likely going to part ways with Brandon Ayuk. And depending on what happens next, the team could still add another receiver, either through the first round of the draft or by bringing in another veteran. That decision will tell us a lot about how the front office truly views the wide receiver hierarchy going forward, who becomes the top option, who plays in the slot, and how the pecking order in this receiver room is about to change. But here's where things get even more interesting, because while the 49ers were busy bringing in Mike Evans, another situation started developing around one of the most beloved receivers already on this roster. And according to one major prediction around the league, there's a real chance that player might not even be in San Francisco next season. And if that happens, it could completely explain why the 49ers just made this move. Let's talk about that next. So now let's talk about the second situation. And this one honestly hits a little different for a lot of Niners fans. Because while the team just brought in a big name at wide receiver, there's a growing belief around the league that one of the most reliable players in this offense might be on his way out of San Francisco. And that player is Jauan Jennings. Jennings is set to hit the free agency market, and according to a prediction from Zachary Perilis of CBS Sports, there's a real possibility that Jennings could end up leaving the 49ers and signing with the New England Patriots. Now, if you've been watching this team the last few seasons, you know exactly what Jennings means to this offense. He's never been the flashiest receiver in the league, but he's been one of the toughest, most dependable players Kyle Shanahan has had in this system. Jennings is the kind of receiver who blocks like a tight end, fights for yards over the middle, makes contested catches, and shows up in big moments, especially in the red zone. And that exact play style is part of the reason why analysts believe he could be a perfect fit in New England. According to Perilis, the Patriots are still trying to fill some major holes on their roster, even after making big moves in 2025 free agency. One of the biggest needs on the team right now is wide receiver, especially after the Patriots released Stephon Diggs. So they're looking for someone who can step in and bring toughness to the offense, and Jennings checks a lot of those boxes. Perilis specifically described Jennings as a tough, reliable pass catcher who is willing to block and work the middle of the field, which fits exactly with the kind of culture that head coach Mike Vrabel is trying to build in New England. And when you look at the offensive system there, it could make even more sense. The Patriots have Josh McDaniels running the offense, and they're building around young quarterback Drake May. Jennings could become a security blanket type receiver in that offense, someone who can move the chains, help in the red zone, and give a young quarterback a physical target who isn't afraid to fight through traffic. But here's the part that might really explain everything that's happening with the 49ers. According to projections from SpotTrack, Jennings could land a contract worth around $67 million over 3 years, which averages out to about $22.6 million per season. That is a huge contract. And if that projection ends up being close to reality, it's not hard to see why San Francisco might hesitate to match that number, especially when you consider the salary cap situation the 49ers have been navigating and the fact that they're constantly trying to balance paying star players while still keeping the roster deep. Meanwhile, the Patriots actually have the flexibility to make a move like this. Reports say New England currently has nearly $45 million in cap space, and wide receiver is arguably the most urgent need on their roster. So from their perspective, paying a physical, reliable receiver like Jennings could make a lot of sense. And if Jennings were to land in New England, some analysts believe he could even break out into a bigger star with a change of scenery, especially if he becomes a more central part of the offense. Now, as a Niners fan, this is where the emotions start kicking in a little bit, because Jennings has been one of those players who represents the identity of this team. He's gritty. He blocks. He fights for every yard. He does the dirty work that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. But the reality of the NFL is sometimes those players get priced out. And when you step back and look at the timing of everything, the 49ers signing Mike Evans, Jennings potentially commanding over $22 million per year, the team still evaluating the future of Brandon Ayuk, you start to see the bigger picture forming. San Francisco might be reshaping the entire wide receiver room right now. And the Evans signing suddenly feels a lot less random. It might actually be the first domino. Now, when you connect both of these stories together, it really tells us something about the moment the 49ers are in right now. This is a team that is clearly trying to stay in Super Bowl contention, while also making some tough decisions about the future of the roster. Bringing in a veteran like Mike Evans suggests the front office still wants experience and reliability in the offense. But the possibility of losing Jauan Jennings shows that financial reality is starting to play a role in who stays and who goes. So the question now becomes, is this the start of a smarter roster transition that keeps the 49ers competitive for years? Or are we watching the early stages of the team losing some of the identity that made this offense so dangerous? As fans, we're going to find out pretty soon. But one thing is clear. The wide receiver room in San Francisco might look very different by the time next season kicks off. And honestly, this could end up being one of the most important roster shifts of the entire offseason. Now, before you go, let me ask you something. Do you think the 49ers made the right move bringing in Mike Evans, even with the injury concerns? And if Jauan Jennings really does leave, do you think the offense loses something important? Drop your thoughts down in the comments because I really want to hear what the faithful think. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. Also subscribe to the channel 49ers Nation Report. The channel is brand new, and I'm trying to build a real community of Niners fans here. So honestly, only subscribe if you're a true 49ers fan and you believe this team is going all the way to the Super Bowl next season. Faithful to the Bay, always.